At 3 a.m., I found my 5-year-old frozen before the antique mirror, eyes open, unblinking, whispering to someone only she could see. When I touched her shoulder, she screamed in a voice that wasn't hers. She says I can't leave yet. She isn't finished showing me. By dawn, the Imam had recited Ayat al-Kursi in front of that glass, and then quietly refused to ever look at it again. If you believe, you'll recognize why some doors should never be opened. If you're skeptical, watch what happens when an ordinary family treats an heirloom like decor and discovers it's a doorway. This began in Damascus with a gift from my grandmother and ended with a warning every parent needs to hear before they hang a mirror in their child's room. Before I continue with what happened to my daughter, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel and leave a comment telling me which country you're watching from. Your engagement helps us share these important stories and warnings with more families who need to hear them. Now let me take you back to how this nightmare began. My life in Damascus was simple but blessed. I taught Quran to young girls at the local masjid. My husband Omar worked as an architect, and our daughter Amina, only 5, was the light of our lives. She had already memorized 3 surahs and could recite Ayat al-Kursi with a voice pure as spring water. We lived in the old quarter, stone houses that had absorbed centuries of prayer, narrow alleys scented with jasmine and cardamom, and a modest home of 3 rooms around a small courtyard with a fountain. It was humble, but filled with barakah. We had everything we needed until my grandmother died. Sit Mariam was 93 when she passed, leaving behind a lifetime of belongings. I had cared for her in her final years, so my aunt announced, "Layla chooses first." We gathered at her old house in Bab Tuma, furniture, jewelry, carpets, copper pots everywhere, but my eyes fixed on one thing, a massive mirror with an ornate silver frame, darkened by time. It shimmered faintly, even in the dim light, as if it contained its own glow. "That mirror has been in our family for more than 200 years, my aunt said. "It came from Aleppo. Your grandmother's great-great-grandmother brought it as part of her dowry." I felt drawn to it in a way I couldn't explain. "May I take it?" I asked. My aunt hesitated, her expression strange. "Are you sure, Habibti? It's very old, heavy with history." "It's beautiful," I said. "It would be perfect in Amina's room." She nodded at last. "Then it's yours. May Allah bless it in your home." What I didn't know then was that she'd been trying to get rid of that mirror for years, that Sit Mariam had kept it covered for the last decade of her life, hidden in the darkest corner of the house. It took 3 men to carry it up to our apartment. Amina clapped when she saw it. "From Sit Mariam, really?" "Yes, Habibti, a special gift." But one of the movers, an elderly man with a grey beard, paused at the door. "Sister," he said softly, "keep it covered at night. My grandmother used to say mirrors are windows, and at night you never know who's looking back." I smiled politely. "Thank you, uncle, but we trust in Allah." After they left, I cleaned the mirror carefully. The dust gave way to delicate inscriptions, Ayat al-Kursi, Surah al-Falaq, and words I didn't recognize, older and unfamiliar. When Amina touched the frame, I saw the surface ripple, just for an instant, like disturbed water. Then it was still again. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "Mama, do you see the lights behind me? Like stars." I saw nothing, only her reflection, innocent and glowing. "There's no light, Habibti. It's your imagination," I said. But she kept staring, transfixed, until I had to turn her away for Maghrib prayer. That night I should have listened to the old man's warning. I should have covered the mirror with the thickest cloth I could find. But I didn't, and that was when everything began to change. The first strange thing happened at 2:37 a.m. I know the exact time because I woke to the sound of Amina talking in her room, and my eyes caught the digital clock on my nightstand as I rose from bed. Omar slept soundly beside me. He could sleep through anything, but a mother's ears are always tuned to her child's voice, even in the deepest sleep. I walked quietly down the hall, assuming Amina was having a dream, talking in her sleep, as children sometimes do. But when I reached her door, which stood slightly ajar, I froze. She was awake, sitting up in bed, facing the mirror, having a conversation. "Yes, I can see you," she said softly. "You're very beautiful. What's your name?" Silence. My heart began to race. "Zaina. That's a pretty name. I'm Amina." Another pause, as if she was listening to someone respond. "How old are you?" "Really? That's so old. Even older than Sit Mariam was." I pushed the door open. "Amina, Habibti, who are you talking to?" She turned to look at me, and in the moonlight streaming through her window, her eyes seemed different somehow, darker, more distant. "Mama, there's a lady in the mirror. She wants to be my friend. Cold spread through my chest. There's no one in the mirror, Amina. You're dreaming. Come, let's get you back to sleep. But she's right there. Amina pointed at the mirror. Can't you see her? She's smiling at you. I looked at the mirror. In the dim light, I saw only our reflections. My own worried face, Amina pointing, her bed behind us. Nothing else. No one else. There's no lady, Habibti. It's late. You need to sleep. Amina's face crumpled with confusion. But Mama, she's right there. She's wearing a green dress and her hair is so long it touches the ground, and she says, "Enough!" I spoke more sharply than I intended, frightened by how specific the details were. There is no lady. Say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim and go back to sleep. Obediently, Amina recited the protection prayer and lay down. I stayed with her, stroking her hair until her breathing deepened and she drifted off. But before I left, I looked once more at that mirror. And for just a fraction of a second, I could have sworn I saw something. A shimmer, a shadow, the suggestion of a figure in green. I whispered the protection prayer myself and hurried back to my room. In the morning, I told myself it had been nothing. A dream, shadows, my own exhausted imagination. Amina seemed perfectly normal at breakfast, eating her labneh and za'atar, chattering about the birds in the courtyard. But that afternoon, when I went to her room to put away her clean clothes, I found her standing in front of the mirror again. Amina, Habibti, what are you doing? She didn't turn around. Zaina is teaching me a game, Mama. She says if I stand very still and don't blink, I can see her world. My blood ran cold. Step away from the mirror, now. But Mama, now, Amina. She obeyed, but reluctantly, and I saw tears in her eyes. You're mean, Mama. Zaina is nice. She never yells at me. I knelt down, taking her small face in my hands. Listen to me, Habibti. Mirrors are just glass. There's no one inside them. Whatever you think you're seeing, it's not real. She is real, Amina insisted, her lower lip trembling. And she says she's lonely. She says she's been waiting for a friend for a very long time. That night, I told Omar everything. He listened patiently, then suggested what I already knew he would. Layla, she's 5 years old. Children have imaginary friends. This is normal. But the details, Omar, the name, the description, from a dream or a story someone told her. Habibti, you're tired. You're still grieving Sit Mariam. Don't let old superstitions cloud your judgment. He was right, I thought. He had to be right. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, and it was only going to get worse. Over the next week, Amina's fascination with the mirror transformed into something darker. She began spending hours in front of it, staring at her reflection, or at whatever she saw that I couldn't. She would miss meals. I'd call her for lunch, and she wouldn't respond, completely absorbed. When I physically brought her to the table, she would eat mechanically, her eyes distant, as if part of her had stayed behind in that room. Her sleep deteriorated. I would check on her at night and find her sitting up in bed, having long conversations with the mirror. When I asked what she was talking about, she would smile secretively and say, "Zaina is telling me stories about the old times." "What kind of stories?" I pressed. "About when she was alive, before she went into the mirror." Those words chilled me to my bones. "What do you mean, before she went into the mirror?" But Amina would only shake her head. "I can't tell you. Zaina says it's a secret between friends." I noticed other changes too. Amina stopped playing with her toys. She abandoned her favorite doll, the one she'd named Yasmin and carried everywhere. When I asked why, she said simply, "Zaina says dolls are for babies. I'm not a baby anymore." She stopped wanting to go outside. Before, she had loved playing in the courtyard, chasing butterflies, helping me water the jasmine. Now she begged to stay in her room. "The sun hurts Zaina's eyes," she explained. "She likes it dark." So I would find her room dim, curtains drawn, with Amina sitting in the shadows facing that mirror. My husband remained unconcerned. "She's going through a phase. She'll grow out of it." But my sister Noor, who came to visit one afternoon, saw things differently. "Ya Allah, Layla, what's happened to her?" she whispered after trying unsuccessfully to engage Amina in conversation. My daughter had barely acknowledged her aunt's presence, her attention fixed on the mirror. "She's just adjusting. To Sit Mariam's death, to getting older." Noor grabbed my arm. No, this isn't normal. Look at her eyes, they're vacant. And she's lost weight. How long has she been like this?" "About a week, but..." "A week? And you haven't done anything?" "Done what?" "She's talking to an imaginary friend. Omar says..." "I don't care what Omar says. He's a man. He doesn't understand these things." Noor looked around the room, her gaze landing on the mirror. "Where did you get that?" From Sit Mariam's estate. It's been in the family for— Get rid of it. I blinked. What? That mirror? Get rid of it. Now. Today. Noor, you're being ridiculous. Am I? Then tell me, have you ever looked into it? Really looked? At night when the room is dark? I fell silent. The truth was, I had been avoiding the mirror. Some instinct told me not to look too closely, not to meet my own reflection's eyes in that glass. I thought so, Noor said. Sister, listen to me. Some objects carry energy. Some objects, especially old ones, can be doorways. You teach Quran. You know this. You know about the unseen world. But surely a mirror is just glass. Then why won't you look at it? She was right, and we both knew it. That evening after Noor left, I stood outside Amina's room, listening. I could hear her voice, soft and constant, like a prayer. But she wasn't reciting Quran. She was talking, always talking to someone I couldn't see. I pushed the door open. Amina, Habibti, it's time for Maghrib prayer. She didn't turn around. Zaina says prayer can wait. She's teaching me something important. My heart stopped. Amina, prayer never waits. Come now. But Mama, now. She turned to me, and the look in her eyes made me step back. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't even anger. It was emptiness, as if the spark that made her my daughter had been dimmed, replaced by something else. You don't understand, she said, in a voice too old for her years. Zaina needs me. She's been alone for so long. I can't leave her. She's not real, I shouted, my fear finally breaking through. There is no Zaina, it's your imagination. Amina smiled then, a strange, knowing smile that didn't belong on a 5-year-old's face. Then who are you talking to when you pray, Mama? You can't see Allah, but you believe He's there. Zaina is there too. Just because you can't see her doesn't mean she's not real. The logic was childlike but unsettling, and it forced me to confront what I had been avoiding. That night, after Amina finally fell asleep, after I had physically carried her away from the mirror and locked her door from the outside, I called the Imam. Sheikh Mahmoud was 70 years old, with a white beard and eyes that had seen more than most. He had been the Imam of our neighborhood masjid for 30 years, had taught me Quran when I was Amina's age, had performed my marriage ceremony to Omar. When I called him at 10 o'clock that night, my voice shaking, he didn't hesitate. I'll come tomorrow after Fajr, he said simply. And Layla, tonight, recite Ayat al-Kursi in every room of your house, especially in your daughter's room. Don't let her sleep alone. I did as he instructed. I brought Amina to sleep in our room, despite her protests. Zaina will be lonely, she kept saying. Zaina will think I abandoned her. There is no Zaina, I repeated. But even as I said it, I no longer believed my own words. That night, with Amina sleeping fitfully between Omar and me, I lay awake, reciting protection prayers in my mind. And I thought about what my grandmother had said to me once, years ago, when I was a teenager. Layla Habibti, she had told me, the world you see is not the only world that exists. There are layers upon layers, realms within realms. Most of the time, these worlds stay separate, but sometimes, through carelessness, through invitation, through certain objects, the barriers thin, and when they thin, things can cross over, things that should remain in their own realm. At the time, I had dismissed it as the superstition of an old woman. Now, I wondered if it had been a warning. Sheikh Mahmoud arrived just as the sun was rising, carrying a worn leather bag. Omar had already left for work, skeptical of the whole situation, but I was grateful for the Imam's presence. Show me, he said simply. I led him to Amina's room. She was still asleep in our bed. I had given her chamomile tea with honey the night before to help her sleep deeply. The moment Sheikh Mahmoud entered the room, he stopped. His entire body went rigid, and I saw his hand move instinctively to his chest, his lips moving in silent prayer. How long has this mirror been here? His voice was tight. About 10 days. And the changes in your daughter began immediately, within the first night. He moved closer to the mirror, but I noticed he was careful not to look directly at his own reflection. Instead, he examined the frame, running his fingers over the Arabic calligraphy. This is not Quranic script, he murmured. Or rather it is, but it's been altered, corrupted. See here? He pointed to a section of what I had thought was Ayat al-Kursi. The words are wrong, subtly wrong, in a way that inverts their meaning. I don't understand. Instead of protection, they're offering invitation. Instead of closing doorways, they're opening them. He pulled his hand back as if the metal had burned him. This mirror is not just old, Layla. It's been prepared. consecrated in a dark way. Someone a long time ago made this into a portal. A portal to what? Sheikh Mahmoud finally looked at me, and the fear in his eyes made my knees weak. To the world of Djinn. And if your daughter has been communicating with one of them for 10 days, Ya Allah protect us. What does that mean? What will happen to her? It means she's been invited into their world, and Djinn, especially female Djinn, can be possessive. If this Zaina has been befriending Amina, she may not want to let her go. But why? Why would a Djinn want my daughter? The Imam's expression was grave. Djinn are made of smokeless fire, but they're lonely creatures. Some of them, trapped between worlds, crave companionship. Children, with their pure souls and open minds, are easiest to connect with. If this Djinn has been imprisoned in this mirror, imprisoned, like a prison, it's possible. Centuries ago, some scholars of dark knowledge learned how to bind Djinn to objects, mirrors, lamps, jewelry. The Djinn would be trapped, unable to leave, but able to interact with anyone who looked into the object. Over time, the loneliness would drive them mad. They would do anything to feel less alone, even if just for a moment. I thought of Amina's words. She's been alone for so long. Can we help her? The Djinn, I mean. Sheikh Mahmoud looked at me sharply. Your daughter is your concern, not the Djinn. We need to break this connection before it becomes permanent. Permanent? What do you mean, permanent? He closed his eyes, as if gathering courage to tell me something terrible. Layla, if a Djinn and a human form a strong enough bond, the human can be pulled across. Their soul can become trapped in the Djinn's realm, while their body remains here, alive but empty. The room spun. That can't happen. You're saying my daughter could become a shell, yes, with her true self trapped on the other side of that glass. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. Then what do we do? How do we stop this? We perform ruqya. We recite protection prayers. We must break her connection to this Zaina, make her understand that this friendship is dangerous. He paused. And then we must destroy the mirror. Destroy it. Completely. Shatter the glass. Melt the frame. Break the portal so thoroughly that it can never be opened again. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Whatever it takes. Just save my daughter. But as we left the room, I heard something that made my blood freeze. A small voice coming from the mirror, even though no one stood in front of it. A woman's voice speaking in Arabic saying, "Don't let them take you from me, Amina. You promised you'd stay." Sheikh Mahmoud insisted we wait until evening to perform the ruqya, when the family could gather and offer support. In the meantime, Amina was to be kept far from her room, distracted with activities, surrounded by prayer. But as the day progressed, my daughter's condition worsened dramatically. She refused to eat anything, pushing away even her favorite dishes. When I tried to force her, she vomited immediately. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent, and dark circles appeared under her eyes as if she hadn't slept in weeks. "I need to go back," she kept whispering. "Zaina is calling me. She's scared. She needs me." "You're not going back to that room," I said firmly. But at noon, while I was preparing lunch and thought she was with Omar in the living room, Amina slipped away. I found her standing in front of the mirror, her hand pressed against the glass. "Amina!" She didn't turn. Her hand seemed to be sinking into the mirror's surface, the glass rippling around it like water. "She's showing me, Mama," Amina said in a dreamy voice. "She's showing me how beautiful her world is. There are gardens there and fountains, and the sky is purple instead of blue. She says I can live there with her forever. I'll never be lonely again. I'll never be sad again." I ran forward and grabbed her, pulling her back. Her hand came free from the mirror with a sound like suction breaking, and she screamed, a horrible, anguished scream that didn't sound human. "No! Mama! No! I was almost there! I could almost see it all!" She fought me with strength that shouldn't have been possible for a 5-year-old. I had to carry her bodily from the room, and even then she kept reaching back toward the mirror, crying, calling for Zaina. I locked the door and took the key. Omar came home early, finally convinced by Amina's condition that something was seriously wrong. He held our daughter while she wept, her small body racked with sobs, crying out for her friend in the mirror. When Sheikh Mahmoud arrived that evening, he brought 3 other men from the masjid, scholars who knew about spiritual matters, about the unseen world. They set up in the living room, with Amina seated in the center on a prayer rug, surrounded by us all. The men began reciting Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest chapter, known for its power against evil. At first, Amina just sat quietly, tears running down her face. But as the recitation continued, something began to change. Her body tensed, her eyes rolled back, and when she spoke it was not her voice, Stop it! You're hurting her. Stop the recitation. The voice was feminine, desperate, coming from my daughter's mouth, but not belonging to her. The men continued reciting, louder now. Please, the voice begged. Please, I haven't done anything wrong. I just wanted a friend. I've been alone for 200 years. 200 years. Do you know what that's like? Do you know what it's like to be trapped, watching the world through glass, unable to touch, unable to be touched? Sheikh Mahmud held up his hand, signaling the others to pause. Identify yourself, Djinn. What is your name and why do you cling to this child? Amina's body relaxed slightly, and when the voice spoke again, it was filled with such sorrow that even I felt a stab of pity. My name is Zaina bint Khalid. was a Djinn of the Fire Clan. 2 centuries ago, I fell in love with a human man, a mirror maker in Aleppo. He claimed to love me too. He said he would marry me, that we would be together forever. The voice paused, and I heard something like crying. But he lied. He tricked me. He learned dark magic from a sorcerer and used it to trap me in this mirror, his greatest creation. He wanted to keep me forever, but not as a wife, as a prisoner, as proof of his power over the Djinn. And the man? Sheikh Mahmud asked quietly. Dead 200 years now, but his prison remains. I cannot leave this mirror. I cannot even die properly. I am stuck between worlds, not fully in the human realm, not able to return to my own, just trapped, watching, waiting, hoping that someday someone would understand, someone would help me. And you thought a 5-year-old child could help you? The Imam's voice was stern. I thought she could keep me company. Zaina's voice rose defensively. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just didn't want to be alone anymore. Do you know what loneliness does to the soul? How it twists and corrupts, even for a Djinn. I've been losing my mind for 2 centuries, and Amina, sweet, innocent Amina, was the first person in 100 years who could see me, who could hear me. Because you made her see you, Sheikh Mahmud said. You pulled her consciousness toward your realm. I only showed her beauty, gardens and fountains and peace. Not like this world with its pain and suffering and death. You were stealing her, I said, my voice shaking. You were stealing my daughter. Silence. Then, softly, I didn't mean to. I swear by Allah, I didn't mean to. I just wanted her to visit, to stay for a while, to be my friend. I've been good, I promise. I've tried to be good. I still pray, even trapped here. I still face Mecca. I still believe in Allah. Doesn't that count for something? The Imam's expression softened just slightly. It does. And that is why I will tell you the truth, Zaina bint Khalid. Your imprisonment is unjust. What was done to you was a crime against Allah's creation. But so is what you're doing to this child. You know this. I know, the voice whispered. I know, but I'm so tired of being alone. Then let her go. Completely. Release your hold on her soul. If I do, if I release her, will you help me? Will you free me from this prison? Sheikh Mahmud looked at the other scholars. They conferred quietly in Arabic, too rapid for me to follow. Finally, he turned back to Amina, to Zaina, speaking through Amina. We will try. We will seek guidance from older texts, from scholars who know the old ways. We will try to find a way to release you properly, with dignity, but only if you release the child now. Give her back fully. No attachments, no lingering connections. The silence stretched so long I thought the Djinn had retreated, but then Amina's body shuddered, and the voice spoke one last time, so faint I almost couldn't hear it. Tell her, tell Amina that I'm sorry. Tell her Zaina says goodbye, and thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Amina's eyes rolled forward. She blinked, confused, looking around at all of us. Mama, why am I sitting here? Why is everyone staring at me? I swept her into my arms, sobbing with relief. My life in Damascus was simple but blessed. I taught Quran to young girls at the local masjid. My husband Omar worked as an architect, and our daughter Amina, only 5, was the light of our lives. She had already memorized 3 surahs and could recite Ayat al-Kursi with a voice pure as spring water. We lived in the old quarter, stone houses that had absorbed centuries of prayer, narrow alleys scented with jasmine and cardamom, and a modest home of 3 rooms around a small courtyard with a fountain. It was humble, but filled with barakah. We had everything we needed, until my grandmother died. Sit Mariam was 93 when she passed, leaving behind a lifetime of belongings. I had cared for her in her final years, so my aunt announced, Layla chooses first. We gathered at her old house in Bab Tuma, furniture, jewelry, carpets, copper pots everywhere, but my eyes fixed on one thing, A massive mirror with an ornate silver frame, darkened by time. It shimmered faintly, even in the dim light, as if it contained its own glow. "That mirror has been in our family for more than 200 years, my aunt said. "It came from Aleppo. Your grandmother's great-great-grandmother brought it as part of her dowry." I felt drawn to it in a way I couldn't explain. "May I take it?" I asked. My aunt hesitated, her expression strange. "Are you sure, Habibti? It's very old, heavy with history." "It's beautiful," I said. "It would be perfect in Amina's room." She nodded at last. "Then it's yours. May Allah bless it in your home." What I didn't know then was that she'd been trying to get rid of that mirror for years, that Sit Mariam had kept it covered for the last decade of her life, hidden in the darkest corner of the house. It took 3 men to carry it up to our apartment. Amina clapped when she saw it. "From Sit Mariam, really?" "Yes, Habibti, a special gift." But one of the movers, an elderly man with a grey beard, paused at the door. "Sister," he said softly, "keep it covered at night. My grandmother used to say mirrors are windows, and at night you never know who's looking back." I smiled politely. "Thank you, uncle, but we trust in Allah." After they left, I cleaned the mirror carefully. The dust gave way to delicate inscriptions, Ayat al-Kursi, Surah al-Falaq, and words I didn't recognize, older and unfamiliar. When Amina touched the frame, I saw the surface ripple, just for an instant, like disturbed water. Then it was still again. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "Mama, do you see the lights behind me? Like stars." I saw nothing, only her reflection, innocent and glowing. "There's no light, Habibti. It's your imagination," I said. But she kept staring, transfixed, until I had to turn her away for Maghrib prayer. That night I should have listened to the old man's warning. I should have covered the mirror with the thickest cloth I could find. But I didn't, and that was when everything began to change. My life in Damascus was simple but blessed. I taught Quran to young girls at the local masjid. My husband, Omar, was an architect, and our 5-year-old daughter, Amina, was the light of our world. She had already memorized 3 surahs and recited Ayat al-Kursi in a voice as clear as spring water. We lived in the old quarter, where stone houses carried centuries of prayer and alleys smelled of jasmine and cardamom. Our small 3-room home surrounded a courtyard with a fountain, humble but full of barakah. Then my grandmother, Sit Mariam, died at 93, leaving a house full of memories in Bab Tuma. Because I had cared for her, my aunt said, "Layla chooses first." Amid the furniture, jewelry, and carpets, my eyes stopped on a huge mirror with a silver frame darkened by age. Even in the dim light, it seemed to glow from within. "That mirror has been in our family for more than 200 years, my aunt said. "It came from Aleppo, part of your ancestors' dowry." I felt unexplainably drawn to it. "May I take it?" My aunt hesitated. "Are you sure, Habibti? It's very old, heavy with history." "It's beautiful," I replied. "It would be perfect in Amina's room." She finally nodded. "Then it's yours. May Allah bless it in your home." I didn't know she'd been trying to get rid of it for years, that Sit Mariam had kept it covered for the last decade of her life. 3 men carried it to our apartment. "A gift from Sit Mariam," I told Amina. She clapped with delight. One of the movers, an old man, paused before leaving. "Cover that mirror at night," he warned. "My grandmother said mirrors are windows. You never know who's watching." I smiled politely. "We trust in Allah." After they left, I cleaned the mirror. Beneath layers of dust, I saw delicate inscriptions, Ayat al-Kursi, parts of al-Falaq, and unfamiliar words written in an older, twisted script. When Amina touched the frame, the surface rippled like water for a heartbeat, then stilled. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "Mama, do you see the lights behind me? Like stars." I saw only her reflection, innocent and glowing. "There's no light, Habibti. It's just your imagination." She kept staring until I pulled her away for Maghrib prayer. That night, I should have listened to the old man. I should have covered the mirror with the thickest cloth I could find. But I didn't, and that was when everything began to change. 5 years have passed since the mirror came into our home. Amina is 10 now, bright and healthy, still able to occasionally glimpse the unseen world but no longer frightened by it. The bracelet from Zaina remains her most treasured possession. She wants to be a scholar when she grows up, she tells me. Someone who studies the boundaries between worlds, who helps bridge the gap between the seen and unseen, who teaches that Djinn and humans can coexist peacefully when there's understanding on both sides. "Like you did with Zaina, Mama," she says. "You didn't just see a monster. You saw someone who needed help." Our family talks openly now about what happened, Omar, once so skeptical, admits that the experience changed his understanding of faith. I believed in the Quran, he told me recently, but I had made my belief comfortable, safe, theological but not real. This made it real. Sometimes I'm still terrified by that, but mostly I'm grateful. As for me, I've learned that mercy and caution are not opposites, they're partners. We can acknowledge the reality of the unseen world while still protecting ourselves from its dangers. We can show compassion to Djinn while still putting our children's safety first. The lesson of the mirror is one I share often now. Whenever I'm asked to speak about what happened, first understand that the unseen world is real. The Quran tells us about Djinn, about angels, about realms beyond our perception. These are not metaphors, they are reality. To be a complete Muslim is to accept that the world is far stranger and more wondrous than our physical senses can perceive. Second, remember that all of Allah's creation deserves basic dignity and mercy. Yes, some jinn are dangerous. Yes, we must protect ourselves with prayers and awareness, but they are not all evil any more than all humans are evil. Zainab was imprisoned unjustly, and it was right to help her, even when it involved risk. Third, be cautious with old objects, especially mirrors, jewelry, and items that have passed through many hands. Not all antiques are dangerous, but some carry histories we don't understand. If something feels wrong, if it draws obsessive attention, if it changes behavior, if it creates coldness or dread, trust that instinct. Seek guidance from knowledgeable people before dismissing your feelings as superstition. Fourth, teach your children about the unseen world appropriately. Don't terrify them, but don't leave them ignorant either. Amina handled her experience better than many adults would have because she already knew the Quran spoke of jinn. She had a framework for understanding what was happening. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, mercy is never wasted even when it's risky. We could have simply destroyed the mirror that first day. We could have banished Zainab violently, caring nothing for her suffering. It would have been safer, easier, cleaner, but it wouldn't have been right. Allah is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most compassionate, the most merciful. We are called to reflect those qualities, even toward beings we don't understand, even when we're afraid. Before I end this story, I want to ask you, what did you learn from what happened to us? Has it changed how you think about the unseen world, about mercy, about the objects in your own home? Look around your house tonight. Really look. Are there any mirrors that draw too much attention? Any antiques with unknown histories? Any objects that create unease you've been dismissing as imagination? If so, I'm not saying panic or throw everything away, but pray over them. Ask someone knowledgeable to examine them. Trust your instincts when they tell you something is wrong, and if you ever find yourself face to face with a being from the unseen world, remember Amina's words. Zainab was just lonely. Loneliness can make anyone do things they shouldn't. Approach with caution, yes. Protect yourself with prayer, absolutely. But don't forget mercy. Don't forget that fear and compassion can coexist. Subscribe to this channel if this story moved you, if it taught you something, if it made you think differently about the world we live in. Leave a comment telling me about your own experiences with the unseen. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear it, with parents who are struggling to balance traditional beliefs with modern skepticism, with people who have felt something strange but dismissed it as imagination, with those who need to know that mercy toward the unfamiliar is not foolishness, it's faith. 3 months ago I received another package, green silk again, but this time containing something that made me cry. It was a photograph, somehow impossibly a photograph, of Zainab with a group of other beings that looked like her. Djinn, I assumed. Her family. She was smiling, truly smiling, in a way she never had in the mirror. She looked free. She looked home. On the back, in that same elegant calligraphy, found them, thank you for everything. Tell Amina I light a candle for her every year on the anniversary of my freedom. Z. I keep that photo in my copy of the Quran, tucked into Surah Al-Jinn, a reminder that sometimes the scariest moments of our lives lead to the most profound lessons about faith, mercy, and the beautiful complexity of Allah's creation. The mirror is gone, but what it taught us remains. May Allah protect you all in this world and in all the worlds we cannot see. May He grant you wisdom to know when to be cautious and when to be merciful. And may He always guide you back to the light, even when you must walk through darkness to find it. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you all, human and jinn alike.